Welcome to Sexuality and Truth with Phil Lees, the podcast where we uncover the realities of youth, sex, and the impact of cultural norms. You are listening to our series on the PEACE-engage process, supporting families in navigating today's public education. In the previous episodes, we covered the first 3 steps in the PEACE-engage process. Step 1 is engage the facts. Understand the facts related to sex ed in school. Step 2 is engage the PEACE-ful process. Build positive relationship with the local educators. And the third step is engage your child. Provide your youth with SRA-based learning resources, in-home programs, classes in churches, independent study, online programs, etc. Today's episode is titled Step 4, Engage Your School, How to Advocate for Your Child's Learning Needs in Secular Schools. In this section, we will learn how to communicate the differentiated learning needs of children in sexual health education and recommend relevant, tested and proven SRA programs as alternative learning choices. This conversation draws from our Family Foundations materials, especially Session 10, Advocacy and Community Transformation. You'll find more detailed support in the PEACE Parent Support Guide found in the Parent Info section at peaceontario.com. Through this module, we will use the term differentiated learning. This is likely a new term for you, but in education it is well known and very important. Differentiated learning is an educational strategy used by educators to tailor instruction to meet the learning needs of the students. There are 3 criteria to examine when assessing whether a learning approach is suitable for children. The 3 criteria are: 1. Is the student's life experiences in alignment with the teaching? If not, they are likely not ready. 2. What are the student interests? And 3. What are the student's learning preferences? Now, let's set the scene. Many parents remain in public schools, by conviction or simply because it's the only option available. The question isn't, should we be there? But how do we be there? Wisely, winsomely, and effectively. Phil, jump in. Why does this matter right now?
Thanks, Chris. It matters because schools are multi-worldview environments. Some families embrace comprehensive sex education, others don't. That said, public schools pledge inclusion for all, and that promise gives parents a legitimate pathway to request faith accommodations and differentiated learning. Not to be combative, but to be constructive. Our aim is simple: protect our kids' optimal health and learning needs while building goodwill with the very people teaching them each day. Today, we'll walk through a field-tested approach. Step 4 in the PEACE-engage process, then translate it into emails, meetings, and everyday interactions with your school.
Here's the roadmap for this episode. 1. Reality and mindset. What are our options? Can our needs be included? And what should be our posture? 2. To whom should parents communicate concerns? 3. Can students opt out of sex ed? 4. Is it possible to opt out of other sensitive curriculum? 5. Should parents opt out their kids from sex ed? 6. 2 system opportunities to communicate your concerns. Let's start with the mindset. 1. Reality and mindset.
Because of the perceived conflict in the public schools, some families move to private schools, or they may choose to homeschool. That said, many do not or cannot take advantage of such an option. Further, the reason we have the concerns in the public system is because liberal value groups are active in the system, and traditional-minded people tend to avoid the uncomfortable situations. That said, if more traditionally minded faith families learned how to engage, change is very possible. If you're in public school, your leverage point is the school system's commitment to inclusion. Inclusion doesn't mean your beliefs disappear. It means your students' needs and family convictions should be considered when you ask clearly and respectfully. It is extremely important to remember that your posture matters. Relational influence outperforms reaction. We'll show you how to be firm about your values while being a solution bringer administrators are relieved to work with. 2. To whom should parents communicate concerns?
So, Phil, when parents are concerned that the learning in the classroom may not be in conflict with their faith values or not be in alignment with the learning needs of their child, With whom should they communicate? The local school, the Board of Education, or possibly the Ministry of Education?
PEACE parents have found that it is far easier to get a successful response and accommodation by communicating in a winsome, factual manner at the classroom and school level. This is because at the local level, the teachers and administrators see the parent often. Because of this, it is far easier for a teacher or a school to respond to need than it is for a school board official. We have found that if multiple parents who have been building relationship work together to bring the same messaging to the local school, it is far more likely that the lesson content will be modified to be less offensive. Over time, if parents in a number of schools communicate the same message, understanding across the system improves, and a system change becomes a possibility. The sex ed issue is an opportunity to communicate the learning needs of our child, Ren, and plant the seeds of influence within the pluralistic education system for relevant, realistic, and responsible alternative learning solutions like sexual risk avoidance. 3. Can students opt out of sex ed?
Currently, the only option offered to parents who do not want their child influenced by controversial CSE instruction is to opt out of sex ed class. Is that true?
Yes. At the time of this recording, every province in Canada allows parents to opt their child out of sex ed classes. In Ontario, the government has directed school boards to make this process straightforward. To help in this process, schools must send home an information letter at least 3 weeks before sex ed begins. This is a key opportunity for you to communicate your concerns about comprehensive sex education, highlight your child's learning needs, advocate for the proven, healthy, evidence-based sexual risk avoidance approach. 4. Can students opt out of other sensitive curriculum?
This is good news. Parents can communicate concern about sensitive content, be informed when such content is part of planned instruction, and, if necessary, opt their child out of sex ed content that is offensive. But, can parents communicate about offensive content in other subject areas and possibly opt out?
All provinces allow opting out of information that is explicitly about human sexuality related. But content that develops respect for human rights, such as gender identity and sexual orientation, school boards have guidelines stating this is part of required instruction. That said, we have found that when parents build positive relationship with the teacher and use sex ed as an opportunity to politely communicate their worldview and their child's differentiated learning needs, many parents have shared that the teacher does consider the families, even when the content is sensitive human rights issues. At this time, this is not a guarantee that curriculum will change or that you may opt out. But if we can expand communication to include large numbers of parents, it is possible to influence the system. Should parents opt out their child from sex ed?
Although opt-out is a possibility, should parents opt their child out of all sex ed instruction?
There are pros and cons to opting out. You need to consider the following questions when you are considering this option. First, you need to consider, where will my child go during the sex ed instruction? Will they be in a situation where other students will see they are not in sex ed and be ostracized? Second question, are other children opting out? How many? If more children are opting out, there is safety in numbers. Third, what is my child going to learn, overhear from other students? Students will likely share what they learned. How will this be received by your child? Question 4 is, what messages/misinformation is my child already exposed to? Will the information they hear in sex ed be any worse? And lastly, how strong are my child's convictions on our family's values? If your child opts out, will their convictions of your values be strong enough to withstand any of the above issues? If you decide to send your child to the sex ed instruction, as a parent, you need to take the following steps. 1. Find out when specific content is planned to be taught. 2. Teach your values clearly before the teaching and help your child know what to expect. 3. After the instruction, talk to your child about what they have learned, process the information, and reinforce your values. 5. 2 built-in opportunities to communicate.
So, Phil, you have said that there are 2 built-in opportunities to communicate with the school. Please explain these times.
The school will not respond to our needs unless parents begin to communicate the learning needs of their children to the school and plant the seeds and the evidence that supports the healthy SRA alternative programs. The school system has 2 built-in opportunities to communicate. The first is early in the school year. The second is when the school sends home the sex ed notification letter. Let's begin with early in the school year. Every school board in the province of Ontario is required to adopt the Ministry of Education's religious accommodation policy. The policy can be seen in full in the parent document on our website. A very important paragraph in this policy reads, and I quote, "Freedom of religion is an individual right and a collective responsibility. The board commits to work with the community it serves to foster an inclusive learning environment that promotes acceptance and protects religious freedom for all individuals. It is expected that students and their families will help the board to understand their religious needs and will work with the board and its schools to determine appropriate and reasonable accommodations." End quote. The Ministry of and every school board in the province is saying to parents, to be understood, you must communicate. Later in the document is lists. The areas of accommodation include accommodations for participation in daily activities and curriculum. As part of their religious accommodation policy, many school boards with a high multicultural population send home a religious accommodation form at the beginning of the school year. This is a good time to communicate religious accommodation issues, even if the school board does not send home a religious accommodation form. To assist parents to communicate concern with sensitive curriculum, communicate the differentiated learning needs of your child, and request religious accommodations, PEACE has a sample letter and guidelines for parents in the PEACE parent document and on our website.
That is wonderful. School boards have a religious accommodation policy that says they will listen and try to accommodate. A good time to develop understanding of a family's religious accommodation needs is at the beginning of the school year. What is the second built-in time to communicate?
The second built-in opportunity to communicate on the sex ed curriculum is when the school sends home the sex ed information letter. At least 2 weeks before the sex ed instruction is to take place, parents are to receive a letter informing when the instruction will take place and outlining the content. This is a natural opportunity to communicate the learning needs of your child. You simply have to send back the permission form with one of the PEACE letters. PEACE has 2 possible letters for parents of elementary school students. The first letter is the sex ed opt-out letter. This letter communicates the reasons why you are choosing to opt out, the difference between comprehensive sex education and sexual risk avoidance. The differentiated learning needs of your child are best met through sexual risk avoidance. That you, the parent, are working to provide sexual risk avoidance instruction to your child at home and would prefer an approach at the school that meets the differentiated learning needs of your child. The second letter I would call the cautiously agree to attend sex ed letter. Some parents are concerned their students will be ostracized by their peers. If you choose to allow your child to remain in the class, we recommend that you attach this letter that communicates you would prefer to opt out, but due to concern the child will be ostracized, you are allowing him, her to participate. The difference between comprehensive sex education and sexual risk avoidance. The learning needs of your child are best met through sexual risk avoidance. You are working to provide sexual risk avoidance instruction to your child and prefer an approach at the school that meets the learning needs of the child. Sex ed is important, and you would like to be informed about specific topics that are part of planned instruction, so that may follow up with your child. 5. A lived example. Greg?
Phil, tell the story of one of the parents who shared his experience.
Greg is a parent who has used our resources. He asked for a meeting with his child's principal and teacher. Instead of denouncing the curriculum, he offered a solution, a vetted, age-appropriate resource aligned with standards. The teacher said, "No one comes in with a solution. This makes it easy." That's the posture we need to take: clarity, kindness, and where possible, something helpful to say yes to. 6. Conclusion.
This is the last episode in the Peace Engage Process series. Let's land this plane with 3 simple moves.
First and foremost, begin to build relationship with your child's teacher. Send one appreciation note today to your child's teacher. 1 paragraph, 1 specific thanks. Second, draft your faith accommodation or sensitive curriculum letter. There are samples on the website at peaceontario.com. Keep it warm, brief, and specific. Then save it for when it is needed. Lastly, begin engaging with your child. Schedule 1 intentional conversation at home this week, at dinner or in the car. Pick a topic: identity, friendship, boundaries, media. Ask a question. Listen first. Then share your family's values in clear, hopeful language. Small steps change atmospheres. Your voice, loving, calm, and steady, becomes the anchor your child returns to when culture gets loud.
Parents, you're not powerless. You're pivotal. If today helped, share this episode with a friend, your church parent group, or your school's parent council. Companion materials and editable letter templates are available in the parent info section at peaceontario.com. Until the next series, stay grounded, stay present, and let truth lead with grace.